on embracing innovation in a post-pandemic world and how that translates towards business growth. Ms. Nuša Fain is a PhD, Director of Masters of Management, Innovation, and Entrepreneur, and adjunct professor at Smith School of Business, Queen's University, of course. Now, that's a mouthful. She really is as important as the number of words in her title. She's phenomenal, and you're really going to enjoy this session. If anything is constant, we know that it's change, right? Change is always present, even when things are staying the same. The pandemic has thrown so many curveballs to the entire world, and of course has affected and infected small business thought process. How do we now innovate the way that we think? How do we innovate from a digital transformation perspective? How do we pivot and to remain competitive? That's what this session, this next keynote by Dr. Nuša Fain is all about. What can we learn from them, and how can we use those learning to help move you forward? The innovative framework that she discusses will help you create not only the skill set, but the mindset to build you into what you believe your business can be. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Nuša Fain.
There is no question that the COVID-19 pandemic has presented new hurdles and challenges for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Many are still trying to recover from the impacts they have experienced over the past 18 months, but there are also those that have made great strides in progress in these unprecedented times. They've used innovation to survive and thrive. Those success stories are the ones I want to talk to you about today. My name is Nuša Fain. I'm the director of the Masters of Management, Innovation and Entrepreneurship program at the Smith Business School, Queen's University. And for the past 15 years, I've been working with companies to build their innovation capabilities, both in Canada and in Europe. I specialize in process management and innovation management, helping companies build their entrepreneurial mindset and innovation capabilities. It is very clear that we live in uncertain times. The only constant actually is change. Historical data has become obsolete because the pandemic has changed the way we work, live, and play. Quick shifts in operations, developing new revenue streams, and using digital technologies have been at the forefront of change for small businesses. The opportunities coming out of the pandemic will actually benefit small businesses for years to come. However, we need change makers. And that is what MMIE program is all about. We focus on building the change makers of the future. Nowadays, particularly due to the uncertainty caused by COVID-19 and the whole pandemic, innovation has become an important facet for companies to succeed. But at the same time, it has also become a bit of a buzzword that people love to use. But often they don't really understand it. At Smith's MMIE, we define innovation as creating something new that generates value. That value can be profit, but it can also be social impact or operational value. At their core, successful entrepreneurs have the very skills required for innovation. And creating a culture of innovation can improve productivity, reduce cost, increase competitiveness, build value, and boost employee engagement. Creating a culture of innovation within a team means everybody is encouraged to think outside the box, improve processes, and generate value. Problem solving is becoming the new core skills for entrepreneurs and innovators. Those companies that did really well during the pandemic had the flexibility and culture of innovation already in place, which means employees were encouraged, incentivized, and rewarded for providing new potential solution to a particular problem. Some of the questions these companies likely ask themselves were, what are our customers' needs? What are the things we can no longer do because of COVID? How can we better serve our customers in this new environment? What can we do to change? Not everything needs to be a breakthrough innovation, but those companies that succeeded, they took time. Not too much time, but time to reassess and determine what they could do differently in order to continue to thrive and meet the needs of their new customers and their loyal existing customer. Take the example of breweries and distilleries that started to produce hand sanitizers at the early days of COVID. They understood the capabilities of their manufacturing processes and they had the flexibility to change. Instead of just continuing to do what they have always done, they pivoted, added value, created something new that was needed at that particular point in time, and it helped them survive in the challenging times. Next to the ability to quickly pivot in operations, the ability to identify and create additional revenue streams is another trait that allowed some businesses to stay competitive in this new environment. Many businesses suffered during COVID when their fixed income that they were used to from their loyal customers dried up, and they didn't have any additional streams of revenue to keep them afloat. To counter this, they had to adopt new business models. One model that performed really well during the pandemic was the subscription model taken up by many small businesses in a variety of industries. Many restaurants and food retailers, for example, offered meal subscription services on a weekly or monthly basis, rather than just offering and relying on one-off purchases. This type of business model builds loyalty, is often cheaper for the customer, and ensures consistency in terms of revenue generation for the small business. But something that really supported small businesses during the pandemic and was essential for success moving forward was digital transformation for sales and customer engagement. It used to be that having a website with a contact button or a phone number was enough for many businesses, but that has changed dramatically in the era of social media and particularly during the pandemic times. When it comes to communicating with customers and potential customers, social media actually offers two-way communication flows that are providing essential for the businesses because they can communicate with the customer in a two-way flow, so there isn't a delay in communication. And not only do brands need social media to connect with customers, but many customers are also engaging in conversation about the brand online. So spreading the word of mouth further, giving a wider reach than if you use no social media. So if you don't have social media, you pretty much don't exist nowadays. Some small businesses actually took their social media presence to a whole new level during the pandemic. They engaged in auctions and marketplaces to build their presence online. Small retailers, for example, held live auctions via Instagram or Facebook when their stores were closed. This allowed them to engage with customers, keep them interested in their products, and conduct sales in a more personal way than they would without the in-person contact that the brick-and-mortar store gave them. For small businesses, we have, however, just begun to scratch the surface of how technology will help shape entrepreneurship and business of the future. And this is why in our MMIE program, our students complete a certificate in disruptive technology, which includes everything from engaging in branding on social media to blockchain and AI, as the future options we might need it to engage with. With data and analytics available for online businesses to make use of, these businesses can understand their customers better than ever and cater to them in new and innovative ways. The shift to a more online-focused presence also opened many businesses up to audiences that they wouldn't have reached without them. Yes, the focus during COVID was on shopping local and supporting local businesses, but inadvertently many businesses gained exposure to a much wider audience base. Now, the task post-COVID is how to maintain that and stay relevant in the sea of social media presence for small businesses. And even though we were able to identify 3 key components that kept businesses thriving during the pandemic, so problem solving, multiple revenue streams, and digitalization, we are still facing a harsh reality. 1 in 6 Canadian businesses is contemplating shutting down during the pandemic, and only 33% of startups make it to their final 10-year mark. What can we do to actually improve those statistics and help Canadian economy thrive through small businesses? The best way for any small business to move forward beyond the pandemic is to learn from the efforts that did and didn't work, and to get comfortable with failure and the idea that risk will always be present going forward. We know that everything will continue to speed up, and the most successful businesses will be those that can innovate quickly and efficiently. This time it was the pandemic. Next time, it may be global warming or something completely different that will change the way we work. It's how you plan, adjust, and adapt that will determine your success in these uncertain times. So, is there a framework small businesses could adopt to become more innovative and grow faster? In MMIE, we believe there is. Based on research insights and continuous engagement with businesses, we have built a framework that our students learn about, use for their own ventures, and iterate to land a successful startup or a scale-up. We work around the learn, build, test, and grow process, focusing on 3 key components of innovation: transformation process, strategy, and culture of innovation. The businesses that succeeded during the pandemic took the time to step back and identify new opportunities within the market that they could embrace and grow their revenue streams. The ability to quickly iterate the idea to launch transformation process is something agile organizations put at the forefront of their efforts. Understanding both your internal stakeholder, so your employee, and your customer needs externally enables businesses to cater for the market better. For us at MMIE, the whole innovation planning process thus starts with market research. Taking the time to allow every employee to research what is going on within their field helps move innovation along and starts to build that other key component really relevant for successful organizations: innovation culture. And even though small businesses always have an upper hand against large organizations in terms of flexibility, effectively managing the whole process of transforming an idea into first the prototype or a minimum viable product, and then into a new offering in the market, helps in managing your waste in time and resources. You build something you can because your business has the capabilities, but at the same time, you also build something the market wants, ensuring that your offering adoption is faster. Embracing this process of continuous research and openness to innovation can then become part of who an organization is and seamlessly shifts into the strategic outlook of a business that drives the culture of innovation further. So surviving and thriving during and post-pandemic is all about planning and managing the process, developing a culture of innovation, and taking a look at it from a strategic perspective to drive your vision forward. So take the days to focus on thinking about new opportunities and empowering your employees to grow with you. So let me provide you a bit more detail about each of the components of our MMIE innovation framework and show you some examples of how small businesses that have grown out of our program have used it to succeed in the pandemic and post-pandemic work. So let me start with the process. The key in our transformation process is the idea to launch process. So we take a structured approach towards generating ideas, identifying problems to solve, testing the market, building a minimum viable product, engaging with the customer through the design thinking process, and building a structured go-to-market strategy. The key to our transformation process is going out there and talking to your customers. So our students, as they engage with our MMIE innovation framework, they actually work on identifying the problem. They all go out there and identify who their customers and potential customers may be, and they co-create their minimum viable products with the customer, not only with the customer in mind, but actually with the engagement. They further learn about how to assess the political, cultural, social, and economic environment and understand the industry attractiveness in order to be able to fully validate the opportunities. Our framework provides them with the tools needed to assess an opportunity, to build a minimum viable product, to engage with the customer in order to build something that at the core of the launch will generate revenue. What we're looking for from the students and where this transformational process help is co-creating in sense of the human-centered design, going through the idea to launch process fast with the ability to iterate and pivot quickly when and if the market demands from you. Some of the examples that I will be presenting today were born out of the pandemic, started pre-pandemic, pivoted in the pandemic, and have grown substantially both in the opportunity and how they generate value. So let me introduce you to Indietech. Indietech is the first automated consulting management system uniting consultants and clients. It is a platform that will manage contract deliverables and supplier risk while consultants and clients connect towards the same goals. So what does that mean, and what does Indietech do? When Sophia Sohn, the founder of Indietech, joined MMIE in 2019, she already had a highly successful consultancy business. She worked with large financial institutions and identified a huge problem she was facing. When financial institutions engage with consultants, next to the contract that they built together, there was no management of risk associated with the deliverable of that contract. So nobody really managed and assessed how different consultants are delivering. This provided a huge supplier risk, but also risks for success for the institutions, as well as the reputation of her consultants. That was the starting point she came in with. While going through the Masters of Management and Innovation and Entrepreneurship program, so our MMIE, she embraced the transformation process idea to launch, and she took a step back and dug into that problem. She started talking to people. She went out there and had conversation. And interestingly enough, the pandemic and the digital transformation needed enabled her to reach wider audiences. So not only talking to financial institutions in Canada, but going beyond the borders to the United States. All of a sudden, the pandemic enabled us to have conversations across the world about the problems we were facing at home. She did a lot of market research to understand that problem in greater depth. So is it just a perception her consultancy has, or is she able to actually build beyond that? She did the research, consulted with a variety of big banks that she either had contracts with or she reached out to during the pandemic. So she went out of the building, even though it was through Zoom, and talked to people. And that problem that she's identified at the start and coming into MMIE, while running through the process, enabled her to identify a clearly stated problem statement, identify the persona, so the target customer that she is wanting to solve the problem for, and got her a team around which she can now build the process around. And the solution she's building, she was able to bring in clear advisory boards that will help her succeed and get the skill set that she didn't have as she was starting up. So running structured through the process and embracing the digital transformation that enabled her to communicate beyond the borders of just the Canadian space that she was working in, enabled her to actually take that step further. She joined a variety of accelerators as part of that journey and is now at the verge of her first seed round. So she is getting financing to bring this platform to life. Next to having a clear problem statement and following that process, Sophia also has a clear vision of what problem she wants to solve and where she wants to take her venture forward. She is building the value proposition with the customer in mind, with the collaboration of the key clients she wants to engage. And while she's doing that, she's focusing on the second part of the framework that we're using, which is the strategic piece, identifying what we stand for and where we want to go. So vision, mission, and foundations around who we are and how we're going to work. While Sophia is engaging with a variety of different clients and potential future customers, she is also building her values up and identifying behaviors that she wants to portray to her business partner. What we teach in MMIE is that values build behavior. So who we are, what we stand for, actually identifies what we behave like and how we are doing business with. Experiences then identify who we are, and through experiences that we build through our behavior, we are able to build our vision of the future. So in our MMIE program, the second part of our framework, the strategic part, forms the next step of how do we grow and scale the venture. First, we need to understand the process. We need to be able to take that step back to learn the idea to launch. But we also need to build a vision around where we want to take that venture to. And even though it might be a winding road, it identifies how we approach doing business. And post-pandemic, that is paramount for any business to do, because we're all of a sudden faced with a whole different perception of how we want to live, work, and play. And businesses need to take that into account, because customers' needs not only have they changed in terms of how they do business with us, but how they engage with life in general. So their behaviors, their experience were influenced by the pandemic. Therefore, strategically, we also need to be able to assess where we want to take our business further. So let me quickly demonstrate how values build behaviors and behaviors build experiences, and how that impacts the strategies we build for our businesses. I want to introduce you to the Grace and Nellie project and their happier, healthier periods. Their co-founder, Ruvimbo, joined MMIE in 2019 with this idea of empowering Zimbabwean women and finding them work, while at the same time providing reusable sanitary pads to Zimbabwean primary school girls. It's hard to believe, but within Zimbabwe, when periods happen for these girls, they often stay at home because they have no access to sanitary pads, and therefore they cannot attend school. Ruvimbo identified a huge problem through that, and she wanted to provide a solution. She took a structured approach through the transformation process, but what made her stand out and what makes her Grace and Nellie project so extremely successful is her standing back to the values that she started off with. So staying true to that belief and managing the behavior from that and following that transformation process has enabled Ruvimbo to identify manufacturers that can help her build and grow the business around sanitary pads, while at the same time empowering women in Zimbabwe. The pandemic has prevented Ruvimbo from building a manufacturing facility in Zimbabwe, even though she had donations lined up to help get sewing started there. And therefore she pivoted clearly. Staying true to her values, she used the transformation process to identify how she can continue with the project even though the pandemic stopped her. And she's now producing the sanitary pads and selling them in Canada, where the benefit of it then goes directly to the rural communities in Zimbabwe. So staying true to the values, moderating that behavior, and identifying how innovation can help you deliver what you wanted to. One clear advantage that both of the businesses I mentioned here, so Indietech and Grace and Nellie project, had compared to anything else we've encountered during the pandemic is that they already had the culture of innovation. So both of the co-founders had an entrepreneurial mindset at the core of their businesses. So they embrace risk-taking, they embrace change, and they embrace that approach towards being motivated to succeed. But at the same time, they allow for failure. So for Sophia, identifying a huge project around how to mitigate supplier risk provided her with, yes, I can build an additional revenue stream for my consultancy, but there's a bigger problem to solve. And she's continuing to push through with a structured approach towards that. For Grace and Nellie and Ruvimbo, the freedom to experiment and pivot from initially wanting to manufacture in Zimbabwe to actually manufacturing here and starting to build that revenue stream that can ultimately help when the pandemic allows to do so, to build a manufacturing facility in Zimbabwe was at the core of her success. So they both embrace the freedom to experiment, fail fast, and learn from that and move forward. And that is the culture and the mindset we build in MMIE. It's what we are about, building the change makers of tomorrow. And that is what we need post-pandemic. 95% of all the economies in the world are run by small businesses. So if we continue to be innovative, we are able to succeed and continue to drive economic, but also social growth and cultural growth of our environments. So embracing the culture of innovation, embracing experimentation, and learning from failure will help you build that mindset and grow for the future. If you're not quite certain how to get started and how to embrace that transformational process, get in touch. We're happy to help. The MMIE program is there to build change makers of the future by providing them a structured toolkit, meaningful education, meaningful processes and tools that can help you manage any change in the environment, the pandemic, global warming, or something else that disrupts the way we do businesses. Thanks very much for your attention. And if you ever want to talk about innovation some more, let us know.